Leonard Montoot, Public Relations Officer for the United Workers' Party. Good morning to all of you, gentlemen and ladies. Before I go into my presentation, I would like to take a moment to read an urgent public notice. And this public notice, it says, effective Wednesday, 9th August 2023, due to some short-term and unforeseen challenges, the St. Jude Hospital urges non-emergency patients to seek medical care at the nearest health center. The hospital will only be able to service emergency clinic and ER visits at this time. The public will be notified of any updates on a weekly basis. We thank the public for its usual cooperation. So this is going out to the general public. I'm hoping that I have assisted in some way in bringing out the message, but at the same time, there is another message that we need to look at. It highlights the ongoing underperformance of that health facility, a facility that is not up to the standard that it should be. And of course, we know of the ongoing saga of the incomplete St. Jude Hospital. And amidst all of the celebration that has taken place in recent days, where the Prime Minister at a ceremony made the announcement that we were receiving funding from the Saudi Arabians, some $201 million for the completion of St. Jude. There are a number of concerns still outstanding, a number of questions still left to be answered. If I recall clearly, in his submission, the Prime Minister indicated that the funds, of course, which is a loan, under quite favorable terms, which I, as a St. Lucian, want to express our gratitude, our appreciation to the Saudi Arabian government and people for providing. I want to ensure that we, in actually showing our gratitude in a tangible way, that we make the best and the most of those $201 million. The Prime Minister indicated that those funds would go toward the completion of St. Jude Hospital and the rehabilitation of the George Odlum Stadium. This leaves us with quite a number of questions. But before I go into my questions, I want to ask of the Prime Minister that he be a little more forthcoming with information that pertains to the general public. Because after all, while we have a 5-year moratorium, 5 years from now, it is St. Lucians who will have to repay that $201 million. And so we are entitled to know exactly what is being done with the $201 million and what the plans are. We have a government that operates arbitrarily. We have a government with no plans. And that situation with St. Jude's Hospital is clear evidence of it. For instance, we have not been told how much it will cost to complete the St. Jude's Hospital. We have not been told how much it will cost to rehabilitate George Odlum Stadium. So I'm asking the question, how did we arrive at $201 million? Are we certain that $201 million will do all what the Prime Minister says that it will do? The next question is, what is the time frame that we can expect for the completion of St. Jude's Hospital? St. Lucians have been waiting some 14 years over some, this is the 4th administration now, for the completion of the St. Jude's Hospital. I think we should be at the juncture where we should be told precisely when it is expected that this hospital will be completed. The mere fact that we cannot be given a date is further indication that there is no planning going on in government and that the government does not have a clue as to what exactly it is doing. This is concerning. As I said, we do not wish to squander those $201 million that were lent to us by the Saudi Arabian government. And in showing our appreciation, we want to ensure that we make the best and the most in terms of utilizing those funds. And so we need a project date for the hospital. It is not enough to tell us as soon as is possible. That is not on the calendar. While he said that the stadium will be completed by 2028, which is a long time from now, the more pressing need is the completion of St. Jude's Hospital. We need a date for that hospital. There are a few other questions I would like answered, and that is, for instance, will part of the new building be utilized? Now, the Prime Minister refers, and his colleagues refers to the building as a box. It is actually the state-of-the-art, built-for-purpose hospital that was begun by the previous administration. And there was a clear plan as to what exactly would be done, and it is known how much it would have cost to complete that hospital. I do not want to get into the naming and name calling to refer to the old St. Jude's that was destroyed by fire as a chicken coop, which probably would have been a more suitable purpose for it at this time, an ancient archaic building that has outlived its usefulness. Yes, it can be rehabilitated, but can it be rehabilitated to the extent that we would get a modern hospital out of it that would provide all the facilities that are needed to facilitate the health care of St. Lucians? That I'm not certain of. But with the clear plan that the former administration had, we would have had a hospital built for purpose that would be a state-of-the-art modern hospital that St. Lucians deserve, and the old building would later be rehabilitated to facilitate a medical university. What is the intention of this present government for the new building that is now being abandoned? And I heard the Prime Minister speak of not getting into politics in the presence of strangers as a precursor to getting into politics in the presence of strangers. Well, the strangers are not here now. Let's get into the politics. He has to tell us exactly what his government has in mind, whether some of the new building will be utilized, if any. What is the plan? He talked about boxing it off, fencing it off. Will it just be fenced off and left to go to ruins? Or whether it's going to be put into use and what use is it going to be put into? He also needs to tell us how much it was estimated that it would cost to complete the new hospital as opposed to how much it will cost to complete the old hospital, and make a comparison and show us the logics and the sense in the move that has been made. And in saying that even the Saudi Arabian technical people agreed to continue with the hospital, well, of course, if you bring them to any building and you say to them that you want to convert it into a hospital, they would oblige. The question is, were they asked to look at the two buildings and determine which one was best? That is the question. But if they were instructed that that is the building St. Lucia gave priority and had preference for, obviously, that is the building that they would have worked with. And so these are concerns that we have. These are questions that are unanswered, and these are questions that St. Lucians need to know. We need to know that there is some planning in government, that our funds are not just utilized arbitrarily based on knee-jerk reactions, based on whims and fancies, but instead studied, deliberate considerations and planning. And as I speak of health, before I end, I just want to ask one more question. It has been brought to my attention, and I'm hearing it widely, that there is an increase in the cases of COVID-19 at the OKEU hospital. The Minister of Health needs to come out to either confirm or refute that claim, because it is important, given the fact that this is a very highly contagious virus, what the circumstances, what the situation is in country at the moment, so that if needs be, we St. Lucians can begin to take the necessary precautions to preserve ourselves and to contain that disease. I will stop at this point. And I will invite my colleague, Senator Dominic Fede, and let me just indicate that it was advertised that Honorable Bradley Felix would have been here, but he had a last-minute issue that came up, which prevents him from being here this morning. And so in his stead, we have Senator Dominic Fede, who will be addressing you. And afterward, we will have a moment for questions from the media. I would just like to ask that during the questions, for the benefit of our listeners, you identify yourself and your media house. Thank you. As I hand over to
Montoot, the Public Relations Officer of the United Workers' Party. Good morning to members of the media, and good morning to your viewers as well. I would like to start off with the hypocrisy of the St. Lucia Labour Party as it relates to the whole question of borrowing. St. Lucians would remember very well that during a very significant time of COVID-19, while we were borrowing to prop up the budget support of the country because the revenue fell out, the St. Lucia Labour Party had all sorts of things to say about borrowing. Borrowing was made to be a sin in the governance of the country, but today, here they are borrowing 200 million, and it's okay for them to borrow it. And such hypocrisy that is steeped in no logic, we must stand up against it, and we must decry it every time we get an opportunity to do so. The question must also be asked, what does the Saudis need in return? What is it they need? Is it more diplomatic passports? We remember very well with the whole Jafali saga. He was a Saudi billionaire. And we woke up one day and we see that we had a diplomat from Saudi Arabia who was our representative at the IMO. And so then it begs the question, what will St. Lucia need to give in return? We need to know that. The SLP laid a report in Parliament, and as a senator, I debated that report. And to say that the report was empty will be an understatement. But the report did reveal a number of important things. One is, in the report put together by a group of technocrats that the Labour Party had brought together, it said that to complete the United Workers' Party's state-of-the-art facility, it required 18 months. We would have been able to get the people out of the stadium. So it meant that if they had kept with the building, the state-of-the-art facility, which we had put forward so that we can advance the healthcare, the quality of healthcare in this country, we would have seen a significant uptick in the dispensation of healthcare facilities. That building, why I feel so strongly about it, because it was built with hurricanes in mind. It was built with the fact that the hurricanes are coming at a stronger velocity. So instead of the old St. Jude's effort where we've put galvanized on the building, we actually built the roof so that it can withstand a Category 5 hurricane. We had facilities so that an air ambulance can land at the top of the building so that we can increase the patient's convenience. We also took into consideration the fact that this St. Jude's, the old St. Jude's, which was built in the 1950s, over 60 years ago, the corridors were narrow, which would have limited the capacity of healthcare professionals in dispensing their duties. The ceilings were low, where people who were too tall had to bend below columns. One of the technocrats from the St. Lucia Labour Party's report team of consultants described the St. Jude's effort as one of the worst pieces of public sector project management he has seen in the history of the country. And why he said that, and I'm talking about Mr. John Peters, who is on HTS News, and you could see the tape yourself in their repository of newscasts. And why he said that is because you had a number of walls that were being built and they were being torn down. You had a roofing system that was put in place and had to be replaced at least 3 times. You had various contracts from that old effort where instead of you seeing an increase in the amount of work, contracts were increasing by as much as 20% in value. This is what Philip J Pierre wants to take us back to, a project management disaster. This is an absolute disaster and a national disgrace that a prime minister, a minister of finance, who is charged with the responsibility of the management of the finances of this country, is going to say to us that he will go back to this project management disaster. He doesn't know the cost to complete this project because the report does not say how many millions do we need. We do know in the handover report prepared by Shanta King that it stated they would require $98 million to finish that facility. But has the government done its own study? That was several years ago. The price of materials, especially with the global inflation problem, have escalated significantly. So we are looking at upwards of $100 million, at least, based on the assessments that we have seen. Is it really worth it to go back into a building that is not fit for purpose? St. Jude's Hospital, the original one, was built as a military medical facility with all kinds of limitations. There's a vast difference between a military hospital and a general hospital that is built for civilians, right? And so this is so sad that the Labour Party is only interested and motivated by their political ambitions rather than what is good for the people of the country. And I cannot support this move. I cannot support the initiative to go and to put $200 million into a project that we do not know what the cost will be to complete. This is madness, absolute madness. The second thing that I find to be very interesting is that the government doesn't care how long this takes. They don't care about the cost. They don't care about the functionality. What are we going to get? The question must be asked, and the government must say, look, if we complete the original St. Jude's construction project, what will we provide for the people of St. Lucia? So what is going to be the functionality? And then if we complete the initiative started by the United Workers' Party, what is going to be the functionality? What is going to be the outcome? Well, the outcome is quite clear. The United Workers' Party's efforts is a state-of-the-art initiative. This is an initiative that was designed for a hospital of the 21st century. The Labour Party wants to take us back into the dark ages. And I am sorry, a lot has changed since the 1950s, after World War II. And so this is such a sad state of affairs which we have seen in our country. I want to digress onto another matter, and that is the issues that are in the police force as we speak presently. The Prime Minister has been asked by a reporter outside the Parliament about the timeline of the current police commissioner, whose name has been embroiled in all kinds of allegations regarding letters that have been written by several female police officers that have suggested that they have been sexually harassed by the acting police commissioner. Now, what is critical and what I find to be quite sad is that the Prime Minister refuses to give a timeline. We were told the last time that he was acting from the months of June and his acting would have been completed at the end of July. Why is it the Prime Minister not leveling with the people so that the people can know who their police commissioner or who the leading officer in charge of the enforcement of laws in our country will be? Why is this a state secret? So I call on the Prime Minister to give the frank and full disclosure as to the timeline of the individual. We want to see a solid plan as it relates to the leadership of the police force. We're calling on the Prime Minister at a time when our country is going through one of the most difficult crises that we face with gun violence in this country. And I don't need to recite the statistics for you, but this is absolutely crucial that we sort out the leadership of the police force. Because if we don't sort out the leadership, then how is it that we can successfully solve the issues that are confronting us at this time? But I must say, I'm very disappointed in the manner that the Prime Minister continues to deal with this crime situation. The Labour Party has shown no management, no leadership on this issue, and they continue to behave as if it is business as usual. But when you've got allegations surrounding leading officials, as allegations as serious as the ones that we're talking about, then something must be done. And I want to again reiterate the calls that have been made by our women's arm that for the time being, the least that the Prime Minister can do is to use his good offices to ensure that an investigation must be carried out to ensure that the veracity of these allegations that have been made concerning the leadership of our police force. And so, frankly, the opposition remains very concerned about the way that the government treats this matter. All efforts to try to overcome the crime situation which we face in the country are going to fail if we don't sort out the leadership. There's no point instituting a 2.5 levy on the backs of the people in an effort to raise money for national security if you're not willing to face head-on the issues confronting the leadership of the police force. And so the government's mere reluctance to deal with this matter once and for all in a very decisive manner continues to undermine the ability of our country to overcome the crime scourge which afflicts all of us. So I'll stop here for now. I don't know if you have any questions about any other matter. Yes.
Jason Harris, UBS TV. Just one question. In a recent interview with the Minister for Health, we noted that we had to go back to the drawing board essentially for DC approval for various buildings as part of the St. Jude project. Just your sentiments about the fact that, again, we are going back for DCA approval, the project itself, having given that we have no timeline, we have no estimates, we have nothing of the sort.
So simple. I'll pass on to my colleague. But a government without a plan is a government that plans to fail. Simple.
Well, the question you asked further highlights the point that I'm making about the lack of planning of the government. I think the first step would have been to agree on a design, to have that design approved, have a costing done, a projection in terms of the period that it would take for the project to be completed, and then to make a disclosure to the general public that here is what we plan to do, here is what it's going to cost, and how long it's going to take. In the absence of that, it's almost as if, like I said, it's a arbitrary, just guesswork that is taking place, because how do we know that $200 million is even adequate to complete the hospital, let alone to complete the hospital and rehabilitate the stadium? As urgent as I consider it to be, given the fact that this is 14 years in the making, why don't we focus on getting this project done and completed as soon as possible? And that is not rocket science to determine the scope of works and the time frame that it will take for those works to be completed. So that is in itself tells you, it is further testimony of what kind of government we have and how our government operates. They play the politics. The Prime Minister indicated to you that he plays politics very well. But he said to you, when it comes to finance, he does not know much about it. He does not know until recently that even tourism was important to the economy of St. Lucia. Okay, he cannot answer questions on crime, though he's Minister of National Security, because he's not a police. His father was. I mean, this is the kind, and you know, many St. Lucians laugh these matters off. But these are the serious issues that we confront as a nation, that we have to take very seriously, because it's our future, it is the future of our country that is at stake, in the hands of an inept, incompetent leader, and a team that doesn't even seem to know any better than he does, who does not provide him with the necessary guidance and support. And so we as St. Lucians will flounder, will perish, if this continues the way that it is going. And that is why it is of utmost and grave concern to me that we are borrowing $200 million. And let us not forget, that is on top of how much money has been spent on the St. Jude Hospital.
That's my question to you, sir.
Sorry, so there's one follow-up. How much would it have costed to finish the St. Jude Hospital, the UWP St. Jude Hospital, the project under your stewardship in the past
40 million to go into the ground floor. 40 million to go into the ground floor.
How much of a timeline would it have taken to move those operations from the current facility into the UWP facility?
Yes, our projection was, from what we were told, it would cost about $40 million to bring it up to a point where we could have moved the patients and staff from the George Odlum Stadium to the bottom floor of the St. Jude Hospital. Of course, it would have been within 18 months that could have been done, which means that by now the St. Jude's Hospital would have been operational in the new building.
I have a question to someone here. And I'm asking you. It's been 4 decades, St. Jude. They have given money before. Now we're hearing more money. What guarantee you believe that the SLP have that will deliver this St. Jude's Hospital? Do you think that there's any guarantee? Because they already did it, and the King, and the Kenny, and the Shas. I mean, what do you think?
Well, first of all, let's not make a comparison between us, the United Workers' Party, and the St. Lucia Labour Party, because we had a clear plan, which we articulated. We had a clear time frame and a cost estimate. That is a vast difference to what you have today. What obtains now is that you have a government with no clue. They have gotten $200 million, and all they can tell you that they will do with it is to complete St. Jude and rehabilitate the stadium. They have not told you how much it will cost to rehabilitate the stadium. They have not told you how much it will cost to rehabilitate St. Jude. They cannot even tell you if they will get approval from DCA to be able to complete St. Jude to be accepted as a hospital. So there is a vast difference between, because the building, the modern building that you see there, that we started, had DCA approval and was well on its way to completion. So.
One question from me. Eldridge Transport Center. My question is this. Recently, we interviewed the current Minister of Health about St. Jude's, and he said that the buildings have not had DCA approval. Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Well, okay. Different question. Sorry. The terms of the loan. First of all, there is a 5-year moratorium. That would mean that this administration would not be responsible for paying back that loan, because he's already 2 years into his term, and that would be 3 years, and then what election would be called, and there would be another administration